Hello everyone and welcome to Make Room. In this video of game making, I'll be showing you how to do collisions and make something happen as a result of collision. So, as per the theme, and as the current times are, we're trying to stay away from people. So, what we're going to program, or I'm going to show you how to do, is we're going to make a radius around the zombie here. And if the player gets close enough to a zombie, then the player's health is going to go down. Basically encouraging the player to stay away from the zombie. So the first thing we're going to do, which is already done here, is we're just going to add a sphere collider to the player. To the enemy. So if I just turn that off, I'll show you sphere collider and make a collider right there. And then we could edit the collider to be bigger by dragging the radius. And we could position it based on these variables here. So that's how you add a collider. And we're going to make it a trigger. If it wasn't a trigger, this would be a hard collider. You could imagine a hard collider. Basically, if it interacts with something, it'll sort of force it to not get closer. So if he was going to walk into a wall and he had a hard collider, he wouldn't be able to just walk through the wall. But if he had a trigger, he would be able to. This is because we just want to get the general radius around the enemy and not exactly change his hitbox. As you can see here, we have a second collider. This one will be a hard collider, so that way when you bump into the enemy, you don't just walk through him. But for determining whether or not we're within range, we want to use a trigger. So once we have our collider here, we're going to make it a trigger, and we could go back to the code. So now that we're back in the code, we're going to write a pre-built function that comes with Unity. It's called onTriggerStay. What this does is every frame a collision is happening, it's going to run the code that's within this function. So in our case, once we're within range of the enemy, we're just going to constantly tick down our health bar. So private void onTriggerStay. So in here, you can see I already have health written up here. This is our player's health. We're just going to do current health minus equals time dot delta time. And this will simply subtract our health based on time. If we have 10 health, it'll take 10 seconds for a health bar to go all the way down. But one other thing I completely forgot to do is this gets called every time a collision is happening. So we want to check to make sure that the collision is happening with an enemy specifically, not like with a tree or anything, because the purpose is to avoid the enemies, not trees. So in order to do this, we do if other.gameObject.tag is equal to enemy. And I'll explain what this means in just a sec. Other is right here. So once you collide with something, other is basically the thing you're colliding with. So if the thing I'm colliding with, if that game object has a tag called enemy, so you see all game objects have a tag. Whether or not they're tagged or not, they'll have a tag. Well, tagged or not, the tag is just untagged. And you'll see with the enemies here, they don't have a tag yet, so we're going to make it for them. And I'll just go back. So you click on tag, then you click add tag, and then the plus, and just type in enemy. And once you have that done, click back on the enemy, and just add the tag. So we're just going to do that with all the zombies here. I'll just do that by myself and come right back once I'm done. Okay, so now that I've gone through and tagged all the enemies, we can hit play and test the project to see if it works. So once I run into this enemy, my health bar should go down. So you'll see once I'm within range, my health bar goes down. So just by doing this one little bit of code here, you'll be able to make interactions happen within the game. Two other things I just want you to show you before I finish the video. This is onTriggerStay. So this gets called every frame you're within a trigger. The two other ones you probably want to be, well, the two other ones that you want to know about are private void on trigger enter, and private void on trigger exit. So whereas this one on trigger stay gets called every frame you're within a trigger, on trigger enter gets called a single frame, and it's just the single frame you enter the trigger. So once you enter the trigger, this will get called once, and then that's it. And alternatively, there's on trigger exit. That's the frame you leave a trigger. So along with these three things, there is one more thing I want to show you, which is private void on collision enter. So on collision enter is basically the same as on trigger enter, but if we go back to our project here, as I showed you before, there's a difference between a trigger and a collider. So a trigger is like an empty space that keeps track whether or not something has entered it or is within or contained within it. So like I said with the enemies here, we don't want this to be a hard collider because we want to be able to walk through it. But the hard colliders are ones that do not have a trigger. And if you want to do collision based on hard colliders and not triggers, you have to make sure you do on collision enter. If you do on collision enter with triggers, they won't work. So I just want to make sure you also understand this. And also the argument that comes with this is also different. This one uses collision where this one is collider. But Visual Studio will autocomplete this for you. But in case it doesn't, know that these are two different things. So as I said, we want to keep these videos short. This is simple collision interaction and making something happen as a result of it. And that's all I want to show for this video. So hopefully you learned something new, and goodbye.